As I sat here and read the internal memo, I was reminded of events I had hoped never to experience again. Amy, my once beloved and unfaithful wife, and now the head of my department, my immediate superior. How ironic. I should have known something like this would happen, but at the time I was just glad to get away from this marriage. Now it has come back to torment me tenfold. Amy said I was just waiting for a heart attack, and she was right. My doctor warned me, but I didn't think much of it, thinking that what I was doing wasn't that bad. After all, everyone works to provide for their family, right? I knew Amy was ambitious, and her needs and desires were many. Take this huge mansion we lived in, the pool in the backyard, and the country club membership that was gathering dust in her home office because we both didn't have time to use it, and it was my job to provide for us, as I was taught with childhood. The love of my life will now control my life again. This was the last straw to bring me out of my state of apathy, since I could not even imagine working under her leadership. Not after finding out how many men she's had, and probably still has. I finished putting the last of my things in the box and picked up my resignation letter as I left the office for the last time. Throwing the letter, work cell phone, car keys, and company credit card onto Megan's desk, I said, "It was truly a pleasure working with you, Megan. I wish you the best. You are a true asset, and I want to thank you for all your help. Take care of yourself and don't let this bitch intimidate you. If she gives you trouble, you can use me as a threat to get justice." "So, you're leaving after all, Sam? This isn't just an empty threat?" she asked, waving my letter in front of her face. "Yes, Megan, you know as well as I do that I couldn't work with her. I can't work with someone I don't respect, and as you know, she killed any chance of my respect. I'm going to miss you, Sam. You know she's going to be pissed when she finds out you're gone. She's been bugging me for weeks about your workload and schedule. I didn't tell her too much, but I felt. Traitor. I should have told you earlier." I smiled. "Don't worry about it. You have to protect your job, and nothing you could say would change the situation. I knew it was over when I saw that merger note. There's nothing I've done here that needs to be kept secret, as you know." "What should I do? What should I tell her when she asks where you are?" I chuckled. "Tell her what you know. Tell her the truth. She can't get upset about it. Do what she wants, as long as it doesn't go against your principles." "It was a real pleasure, dear. I will keep in touch with you, I promise," I said, shaking her hand and kissing the back of her hand. I got into the car when a black limousine pulled up in front of an office building, and Amy got out with two well-dressed men, looking like a real high-ranking businesswoman. Although we all knew the truth, she's just a highly paid elite woman of easy virtue with a title. Amy looked very professional in her business suit, but back then she always looked good in anything. She looked back but didn't see me, and that's exactly what I wanted. I sat there for another minute or two to give her time to enter the building before I pulled out of the parking lot for the last time. I had already settled all my affairs, sold everything that needed to be sold, and put the rest in storage. My doctor told me I needed a change of environment, and I finally decided to take his advice. I spent the next 3 months traveling around the country, seeing the sights and relieving the stress of work. I found myself in a small town at the end of the world. The climate was moderate, the locals were friendly, and the fishing was excellent. I rented a small 3-room cottage with a workshop next to the lake, with the option of purchasing. He had everything he needed to start a new life. Sitting on the back porch with a bottle of beer, I thought for the first time about how Amy had taken my disappearance. I decided to call Megan the next day to find out what the consequences of my sudden dismissal were. "Hey, Megan, it's Sam. How's it going at the salt mine?" "Sam, it's so good to hear from you. I was starting to worry that you fell off the edge of the earth." I laughed out loud as I sat on my veranda and watched the water lap lazily against my private dock. "Not completely fallen, but the view from here is stunning, to say the least. You'd love it here. How's it going?" "Oh my God, Sam, you sure know how to throw a cat into a flock of pigeons. Amy is furious. She's gone through the company like salt packets, and there have been layoffs left and right. Kevin Paxton left last week after a conflict with her. I don't know what they were talking about, but she moved him from logistics to archives. She basically moved him to an office in a windowless basement, and as you can imagine, Kevin didn't stand for it, so he resigned and left. I'm sorry to hear that. Kevin was a good man, probably one of the best in his field. What is this woman doing? If she's not careful, she'll sink the ship before it even leaves the harbor. How was she with you? I heard Megan chuckle. In a nutshell, Sam. Damn frustrating. She tried to fire me on my first day because I let you leave before she could talk to you. As if I could stop you, and I told her about it. Then she said that since I don't have a boss now, I'm not needed, and that I should pack my things and get the hell out. I stood there and told her that if she tried to fire me, I would sue her and the company so fast she wouldn't have time to put on her makeup before the trial. Then I told her what you said, and she went silent. It never seemed to occur to her that her way up through the bed might come back to bite her in the ass. Megan burst out laughing again before continuing. So now I'm the secretary to the bitchy F of operations. I think it has to do with keeping enemies closer than friends. I told her I was expecting a big pay raise with a raise. I don't think she liked it because she just grinned, but in the end, I got what I wanted. I was in two minds listening to all the latest gossip from Megan. On the one hand, I was pleased that my departure had an impact on Amy's plans. Don't get me wrong, I changed my life for my own good. It was what I needed to do, and Amy's arrival was just the push I needed to end my procrastination. This latest reversal was just the icing on the cake, so to speak. However, I was concerned that it might affect everyone else in the long run, and that was not my goal. The next morning, I ran out of sugar and decided to go to a small store not far from the road. Their property actually borders mine, with an open meadow in between. I almost collided with a young couple leaving the store and apologized to them before turning to see a young woman behind the counter, clearly tired, in her early 20s. "How can I help?" she asked. The child in her arms began to act up, and at that time several cars drove up to the gas pumps in front of the store. The woman sighed. "Where is Jillian when you need her?" I smiled and said, "Can I help? My name is Sam, and I live nearby. The baby seems hungry, and all I need is sugar. I don't have anything urgent to do, so if I can help, until you finish, or until he comes to Jillian, I'll be glad. How about I help those outside, and you take care of the child?" The woman smiled in agreement and replied, "My name is Vivian, and I would really appreciate your help, Sam." I went out and helped the travelers who were driving their cars. I washed the windshield and chatted for a while, then went back into the store and placed the money next to the cash register when another customer came in and started looking at the items. I approached him to say, "Can I help you with something, sir?" "Just looking at your fishing rods," he replied. "I'm on the road and I had to get my car repaired and it's going to take all day. I thought I'd go fishing to pass the time." I noticed that he looked like a businessman, and he could have been me not more than a year ago. He chose a cheap rod and reel, so I asked, "Do you fish often?" The guy shook his head. "Not really, although I would like to if I could find the time." I smiled. It was something I was good at, and began to convince him that buying a more expensive fishing rod would greatly improve his chances of catching fish and enjoying his holiday. I served about a dozen more clients before Vivian was able to put her daughter down after feeding. "Thank you so much, Sam. Why is it that things always go wrong when it's least needed? Bessie isn't usually fussy at this time of day, and Jillian is always on time." I laughed. I'd have to explain quantum mechanics to answer that question, and since I have no idea what it is, you'll have to figure it out for yourself. Maybe you and your husband need to hire more reliable workers. At these words, Vivian's face darkened, and I noticed it. "Sorry, I think I said something wrong. Please forgive me." Vivian looked at me with sad eyes, a tear glistening in the corner. "It's not your fault, Sam, but I'm a widow." Vivian told me that her husband Greg was a member of the Army Reserves and was killed in training. She said the truck he was in overturned and he died. The worst thing is that Greg never found out that he was going to be a dad. Bessie was most likely conceived the night before he left. Vivian wiped her tears with the back of her hand and continued, I think he would have been a good father. He had a lot of ideas, including this store. Vivian waved her hand around, pointing at the store and the ground it sat on. Over the next few weeks, I went to the store regularly and helped out whenever I could. I know what you're all thinking, and you're probably right. Vivian was a beautiful woman, and my hormones had been unsatisfied for a long time, but other than that, it gave me back my self-esteem. What hurt me most was the realization that Amy's infidelity was a sign that she didn't need me or think I was capable of providing for our family, that she didn't have faith or trust in my abilities. This was the last insult I had to endure. I think Vivian saw my need to give, and although she never directly asked for my help, she never refused when I offered and always commented on how much she appreciated my support. I was starting to enjoy our time together. She was funny, caring, and appreciative, which I really liked. I was returning home after another day of helping out at the store when my cell phone interrupted my thoughts. Hello. You wouldn't last a day at the front desk, Sam. You have terrible manners when answering the phone. The woman's voice on the phone laughed. Hey, Megan, sorry. You caught me off guard for a minute. It's almost 7 in the evening. Anything urgent? Megan turned serious and said, I had to wait until I got home to call because I don't know if the bitch boss is listening to my work phone or not, but I didn't want to risk it. And Sam, that's why I'm calling. You need to be on the lookout. She's hiring a private detective to track you down. Or rather, she asked me to hire one, and I can't refuse and keep my job, but I thought that if you were warned, you could hide and not get caught. I sighed. Has this woman really set out to drive me into a grave? I don't know, Sam. All I know is that she's on edge. She's working an awful lot of hours trying to fix the situation, and I think it's taking its toll on her. She looks 10 years older and has probably gained 10 kilos. Well, she can't be pregnant, although she could be, but certainly not from me. I heard Megan giggle again on the other end of the line. No, I'm pretty sure it's stress. Too many comforting trips to the freezer for ice cream, I'd say. You can see it in her face and upper arms. She's starting to swell. She is desperate to find you and has entrusted me with this task, claiming that it is my fault that you left without speaking to her. Damn it. Okay, I know there's no point in ignoring her. Here's what I suggest. Wait a week, and then tell her that the detective couldn't find me, but that the phone is working. Then tell her that you already called me and talked me into talking to her. Megan must have heard the irritation in my voice. Are you sure, Sam? I really don't want to do this to you. Don't worry, Megan. You need to take care of yourself before covering for me like you do. I appreciate your efforts, but don't put yourself in harm's way. A week later, Megan texted me the morning before work. PH no 2BB2 day. Be ready for calls today sometime. I saw the message and chuckled at the acronyms. BB, bitch boss. No, not that. Oh, probably number. Damn these young people with their high technology. Then I wondered what I would tell her. Nothing came to mind, and I decided that I would solve problems as they came. As promised, the call came. I recognized Amy's phone number when I answered, Yes, Amy, what do you want? Amy must have been caught off guard by my casual manner and abrupt greeting. What kind of bitch is my secretary? I hung up. My cell phone rang again. Damn Sam. I hung up again. The next time the phone rang, Megan quickly intervened. Are you going to talk to her or not? I grinned. Tell that bitch that next time she calls, to control herself so she can say more than 2 words. I'm not going to put up with her trying to boss me around anymore. Megan giggled. It'll be a joy, Sam. We'll talk later. 5 minutes passed between the conversation with Megan and the next call. Sam? Yes, Amy. What do you want? Another pause, then. Can I talk to you for a minute? I'm listening to it. Another pause. Did Megan complain to you? What did she say? Megan is a very bright young woman, and it doesn't matter what she told me. This girl, your so-called bitch secretary, is the only reason you're talking to me now, and if I were you, I would thank her for her help. So I'll ask again, what do you want? I heard a sigh. Sorry, Sam. I'm just a little on edge lately. I know Megan did her job well, and I appreciate that, I really do. I realized that Amy was trying to soften my anger, and I wondered what could have made her give in so quickly. Go over to the point, Amy. You still haven't said what you want. I heard Amy choke back a small sob. I really need to talk to you, Sam. I need your advice. I thought we were going to work together. You know, like a team, but you quit and disappeared before I could. I was able to tell you about my plan. I muttered irritably. I saw where this was going, Amy. As soon as I saw the merger note, I knew there was no point in staying and being humiliated again. So now that we've cleared that up, live happily, Amy. But I doubt that we will see each other again, since I no longer communicate in your circles. Farewell. No, please, Sam. Please listen. I really need to talk to you, but not on the phone. It has to be face to face. I know I probably don't deserve this, but I'm asking you. Just half an hour, 30 minutes to present your idea, and then I'll leave it up to you. Amy was almost crying into the phone by the time she finished. Please, Sam, I don't know who else to turn to. Gnashed teeth. All I wanted to do was hang up and forget I was ever involved with this woman. A long moment passed while I struggled with myself. Okay, Amy, but I won't run after you, so if you need to talk, you'll have to meet me. I'll make arrangements with Megan, and she'll let you know when and where. I closed the phone before Amy could answer, half expecting her toll call back, but the phone didn't ring all evening. Amy was annoyed. Why do I have to go through all this, Megan? Why can't you just give me Sam's address and let me go alone? Megan's fingers clenched on the steering wheel, white with tension. For the last time, Amy, it's because Sam wants it that way. You have to see him. He doesn't want to see you. His words, it's my way or no way, her choice. I don't like sitting in the car hours with you any more than you, but if he wants me to bring you, then you will have to accept it. I am not going to be present at your conversation. I will leave, rest assured. I started chopping vegetables and herbs for the Italian sauce I was making for dinner. Megan called half an hour ago, saying they would be there in an hour, which meant they would arrive in 20 to 30 minutes. The last thing I wanted was for Amy to feel comfortable while she was here, but being busy preparing dinner gave me an advantage. 15 minutes later, I heard a knock on the door. It's open. Come in. Well, you look just like a housewife, Megan joked with a sincere smile. I laughed at her joke. Hi, Megan. Good to see you. You look good. Looking in her direction, I saw Amy standing behind me, clearly nervous. Amy, that's all I said, but I noticed how Megan assessed her condition. I saw shadows under her eyes as well as weight gain. Megan's estimate of 10 kilos may have been slightly exaggerated, but it wasn't far from the truth. I'm dying of thirst, Megan said, hugging and kissing me on the cheek. You look pretty good too, so I guess the country air is good for you. There is wine, beer, or cola in the refrigerator. You can take whatever you want. To prove my point, I raised my dirty hands. Would you like something to drink? I threw in Amy's direction as if casually. Amy couldn't help but notice the coldness in my voice and lowered her head slightly, realizing for the first time that this meeting would be more difficult than she expected. Hey, Sam, thanks. A glass of wine would be nice. Megan's right, you look good. Megan opened a bottle of white wine and poured 2 glasses, passing one to Amy. Where should I go to see the end of the world? I want to see the view, she pointed with her hand, holding a bottle of wine. I'll leave you two to sort things out, but remember, she pointed the bottle in my direction. I'm not here to bury bodies or clean up crime scenes, so behave yourself. I smiled at her joke about falling off the edge of the earth and pointed to the back door, commenting, Don't worry about me, there's a fishing rod on the porch if you want to go fishing. Megan rolled her eyes. I don't think so. I wouldn't know what to do with her even if I caught a fish. With these words, she walked out the door, leaving Amy and I alone. "Sit down and tell me why you're here," I said, pointing to the chair and going back to chopping the herbs. Amy hesitantly sat down and looked around, trying to find a way to soften the situation. "You have a cozy place here, small but cute." I tensed. My irritation at her presence began to show. "This is not a friendly visit, Amy." I went back to chopping the basil. "Just say whatever you have to say, and we can both go back to our lives." Amy suppressed a sigh, took a sip of wine for courage. "Can I ask one question?" I sighed. "You can ask as many questions as you want, Amy. That doesn't mean I'll answer them, but go ahead and try." "Why did you go away?" I turned to see Amy watching closely for any signs that I might explode. I think she knew me well enough to know that I was making an effort to control my anger. I dropped the knife and turned to Amy. "You don't have to be a genius to figure out my motives, Amy. You're the vice president now. You should have at least some brains to figure it out. You can probably figure it out." Amy flinched at my hint about her career methods, and I could see her irritation. "That was a low blow even for you, Sam. I'm quite capable of doing my job, but I can't read minds." I crossed my arms over my chest and looked at her for a long time. Amy looked like she was being strangled under my gaze. "You're right, Amy. You're not a mind reader, and there aren't many, if any, people like that. But to be effective in your job, you need to be able to read people, understand, and predict their motives. That's what a good leader does. He finds the talents of his employees and uses them for the benefit of the company. This does not mean that he does it in a malicious way. It should be beneficial for everyone. Do you want to know what I think about you and your talents, Amy?" I noticed a shiver run down her spine at my question. She almost certainly knew what I was going to say and was sure it wouldn't instill confidence in her, but I think she felt like she needed to keep talking to have a chance of getting what she wanted. She straightened her shoulders. "Okay, Sam, I'm ready. What do you think of my business talents?" I almost laughed out loud at her pathetic attempt to tease me and continued to cook. "You are a bulldozer, Amy. You have the subtlety and grace of a bull in a china shop." This answer unsettled her, and her open mouth said it all. Of all the options she expected to hear, this wasn't even on the list. "Bulldozer," was all she could say a minute later then. "Could you explain what you mean?" I smiled internally as I continued the clip. "Yes, Amy, bulldozer. You go to your goal in the most direct way, which may not be the easiest, and you don't analyze the situation. You don't look around and ask yourself who can help, who will help you. You don't think about anyone but yourself. You don't sit and ask yourself which way of attack is the best. You just go straight ahead, with your head down, and God forbid anyone who gets in your way. This is the situation you are in now. You have burned your bridges and left a devastated land behind." I saw a tear appear in the corner of her eye as she listened to my tirade. For the first time in all the time I knew her, she was speechless. "No, not like this," was all she could say. Her weak retort spoke volumes. "Everything I did was for us, Sam, but your ego made you blind to it. I understand that I hurt you, and I asked you for forgiveness 1,000 times for it. If only you stayed a little longer, I could have told you about my plans. You still haven't told me why you left." I tasted the sauce and added more salt. I saw where this was going, and I'm not a fool, Amy. I knew you came to cut down the dead weight. You are the axe sent to eliminate those who need to be removed so that the company could move forward, and I completely agree that this was necessary. All I did was make it easier for you to make these decisions." I noticed hope in her eyes. This was where she wanted the conversation to go. "Sam Beckman, for a smart man, you do stupid things. I had no intention of firing you. And if you had any sense, you would know it. Like I said, everything I did for us. I did this so that you could see your dreams come true." Good move. She tugged at my heartstrings and flattered my ego at the same time. But I never said she couldn't flatter. It just annoyed me that she flattered others too. I can't count the number of times we sat in the kitchen at home, and you talked about how the fools at the top were keeping the company on its knees with their mismanagement. I believed in you, Sam. I believed when you said you could lift the company up from its knees. I'm now in a position where I can help bring your ideas to life. I knew you could do it, and I worked to give you this chance. I took a chance with my bosses, saying that I could lead your company to great profits. And what did I get in return? Oh, now it's my fault. You left me hanging without giving me a chance to explain my intentions. I'm fighting, working long hours to accomplish what you said could be done. All I need is a little help from the only person I've ever or loved. It's you, Sam. I need you. Together we can achieve great things and reap the benefits of our union. Arrow, I love you, and this is our future. I'm not stupid enough to think that we'll get back together, although I dream about it all the time. No, I see that if we work on this, we can build a good business relationship and be happy. So what do you say? Let's make a truce and start working, and together we will show everyone that we are a force not to be trifled with. Amy took another sip of wine and sat back. She seemed pleased that I stood and listened without interrupting her. But now her momentum had died down, she had made her case, and now it was up to me. I finished making the sauce while Amy made her speech and now put on the water for the spaghetti. The only thing I could think about were the last words of Julius Caesar et tu, Brute, betrayal. These 3 words were perfect for her past and current actions. Okay, Amy, a good leader considers all angles and then decides on the best course of action. Suppose I believe in your so-called brilliant plan. What makes you think I can help you? I saw the irritation in her eyes at my question. I think it was obvious to her. I already told you that I believe that you have the ability to do this, and that you have the respect within the company to attract the support of the employees, so to speak. They trust you and respect your opinions. Obstacles you have faced in the past were from the top management, and they were eliminated when I became the vice president. I don't understand what you're trying to say. I smiled sadly at her naivety. You don't see that your appointment to this position has deprived me of the opportunity to attract support. But I'm not surprised, and the reason I say that is because of your refusal to admit that you did something wrong. Others see it differently, Amy. I saw the concern on her face as I continued. Have you ever wondered why you have trouble getting support for your ideas? Word has spread well enough to inform everyone on staff about your business practices and ethics, and not mine, I might add. Words. Amy's face became a mask. I touched on a topic that she wanted to leave aside. Everyone sees you as a woman of easy virtue who rose to the top by having sex with those who could help her rise one step higher, leaving more deserving employees to fight for the scraps behind you. Amy was honest enough to wince. They know you cuckolded me in our marriage, and it was a hardship for me until I realized I still had dignity and their respect the day I cut ties and divorced you. If I accept your proposal, I will basically tell everyone that everything you did was right, and now, instead of being a husband with horns, I will become an employee with horns. I will lose their respect, and my ability to function will be lost. Tears began to gather in the corners of her eyes again when I gave her a negative assessment of her proposal. Her confidence began to crack. I don't believe you, Sam. I showed that I was willing to work hard. Everything I did was to get into a position of influence and get the job done. I am fully capable of doing this job, otherwise Jason wouldn't have given it to me. To me. I shook my head, my anger and irritation turning to sadness. Now I realized that Amy really believed her own lies, that her mind, perhaps for the sake of self-preservation, refused to recognize the truth of her situation. Did Jason himself come to you with a proposal for a merger, or did you insist on it? Amy wiped her face with a handkerchief she had taken from her purse and stood up straight with a little hope. It doesn't matter what you or anyone else thinks. I'm not Jason's puppet. I went to see him myself, and I have to say, he put up a lot of obstacles before allowing me to present my proposal to the board of directors. I nodded, acknowledging her words. It was as I feared that the merger had begun. Just as I thought. Let me ask you one thing. Did Jason make love to you when he gave you permission to address the board of directors? If Amy's eyes hadn't given her away right away, the sigh would have definitely sealed her fate. Trying to collect her thoughts, she asked, Why do you think that? I laughed at her reaction to my question. Do you know why I was good at my job, Amy? I continued without waiting for an answer to the rhetorical question. For as long as I can remember, I've been making profiles on everyone I meet, and before you embarrass yourself, that goes for you too. The problem with your profile is that I didn't take into account my love for you. I foolishly thought that if you love me, then I can trust you completely. It was a mistake that cost me dearly, and I changed your profile because, as my grandfather said, you can't get older if you don't get smarter. I judge people not only by their words, but also by their actions, and if it suits their profile, then I can either work with them or bypass them. Either way, I seem to make the best of any situation. Knowing what a man Jason is, I don't believe he cares whether you succeed or not. He'll wash his hands of it and say it was the board of directors who approved your proposal. I saw understanding light up in her eyes as I continued, if you're successful, he'll take the credit for bringing in the up-and-coming executive who increased the bottom line. He wins regardless of your success or failure. So there's your belief that you have support from above. Jason doesn't care if you can put your boots on correctly or if you're stupid enough to think you can pull off this grab just yet. You bring he enjoys it, he will be pleased. You're on your own, Amy, a small fish in a big pond, and the piranhas are hungry. Amy fiddled with her handkerchief. Everything I said mattered, and it must have scared her with the thought that she was in more trouble than she realized, but true to her modus operandi, she closed her mind to the possibility that she would not be able to secure her future. So you don't think I can do it? I shrugged. No, Amy, I don't think so. I know you can't do it. I turned away from her to calm down. From what I heard, all you could do while you were there was tread water and create so much smoke that it was difficult for everyone else to do their jobs. I turned back to see Amy's reaction. I'll be surprised if there isn't a 25% decline in earnings at the next shareholders meeting. But this is all speculation. You can put a spin on it any way you want, but it all comes down to your reasons for doing it in the first place. Let me tell you what I know and what I think. You said you loved me and did it for us. Amy visibly shook under my pressure, but nodded in agreement. But by your own admission, all this is for the sake of your own future. It has nothing to do with mine or ours. If you loved me, as you constantly claim, you would do everything possible to make me stop working myself to exhaustion. What did you say? I had a heart attack waiting for its time and place. I waited for her to remember before continuing. You didn't try, or if you tried, it wasn't convincing. No, you just went on with your business, waiting for me to start feeding the worms. You could threaten divorce if I didn't slow down. And didn't think about us. I'm sure it would have gotten me thinking in the right direction, and I know your infidelity certainly did, which is why I'm here now and feeling great. I love you, Sam. I didn't want to divorce you. You didn't want to get a divorce, but you were willing to sit back and watch me work myself to death. Does that sound really loving? I finished sarcastically. I smiled internally. Amy couldn't refute my arguments and couldn't hold my gaze. I didn't mean what I said then, and I love you even now. I regret a lot of what I said to you then. My grim mask probably showed doubts. I'm also sure Amy believed what she said. I have no doubt that in my understanding, you love me, Amy, but this has nothing to do with our situation. Don't you understand? I can't trust you now, neither in personal relationships nor in business. I decided to end this conversation. That's how I see it now. You've finally risen as high as you can. No one else can help you rise higher. You'll have to wait for Jason to retire or die before you're in line to be CEO, and you decided that this would be a good opportunity to consolidate your position in the company and apply for the coveted position of CEO. Amy wanted to object, but I stopped her. This is where your plan to take over my old company comes in. You take over and tempt me to work myself to exhaustion again to strengthen your nest. I'm perplexed that you really expect me toil obey, and I will do what you say. I thought it was obvious I wasn't a weakling when I threw you out the first time. Then I realized that maybe it was my fault that I made you fail. I noticed that Amy was having a hard time following my words. At one moment, I blamed her for everything. and now I accepted responsibility. You're not being logical, Sam. I think you're the one turning everything upside down. I hung my head and sighed in frustration. Okay, Amy, you've heard the saying, be tough to be kind. I was not kind. I misled you when I should have cut you and kicked you while you were on the ground. But instead, I went to Jason and forced him to fulfill his promise to make you vice president, and he did. I did. I loved you enough to not want to see you hanged, even if you deserved it. I was wrong because it made you think that you have a chance to win me back. Your love cards for my birthday, Christmas, and others. Cases have been confirmed this time after time. I stood up to check the sauce and added more water to the almost dry pan. If I had done what I had to do, you would have disappeared to some unknown place where no one knew you, healed your wounds, and started again, hopefully wiser. That's what I want you to do now. Just leave and start again. Tears were gathering in her eyes again. You'll have to go back to some secretarial work, but it won't be as bad as what will happen if you stay and try to fight. I watched as my words penetrated Amy's consciousness. I did my best press as strongly as possible, and I was sad to see challenge instead of surrender in her face. I know I hurt you, Sam. God, I beat myself up for it every day, but what you just said is just cruel. You don't believe in me at all, despite all the faith I put in you. Well, if so, sit and watch, and I'll show you how it's done. It was at that moment that there was a knock on the door. Come in, I barked in irritation. Is everything okay, Sam? Sorry if I'm interrupting. I sighed, regretting my anger, and looked at my watch, not realizing how much time had passed. Sorry, Vivian, no, please come in. Amy was just leaving. I glanced at Amy and waited for her to get up. Amy looked at Vivian standing in the doorway of the living room. She was a good 5, maybe 10 years younger than her, and beautiful as a picture, slender with long dark brown hair. I couldn't help but notice the look on Amy's face when she realized why Vivian was there. She looked at me again. I just looked at her blankly, then her eyes went back to the food boiling on the stove, then back to me. Tears began to flow when it dawned on her. I looked over my shoulder at the dinner Vivian and I were preparing and realized what Amy was thinking. What? You thought this was for you? I told you at the very beginning that this is not a friendly visit, so don't start crying because I have a friend for dinner. It's over between us, and it's already been a long time. Years old. The only reason I let you come here was to try to knock some sense into your head. Amy stood up, headed down, and ran past Vivian, muttering, Tell Megan I'll be waiting for her in the car. I hope I didn't make things worse. Vivian watched Amy retreat. I'll leave and you can work things out. Can I tell Jillian that her help is no longer needed? It has nothing to do with you. I'm glad you showed up when you did. I hugged Vivian and kissed her on the cheek. Can you put the pasta down and watch her for a minute? I need to tell Megan that our meeting is over and that she can take Amy home. As I walked out into the backyard and saw Megan dozing in the last rays of the setting sun, it occurred to me that Amy was right about one thing. Now that Amy has become vice president, she has removed all the obstacles to my ideas, and I wondered, how's the species? Just like you said, Sam, just refreshing, Megan said, smiling with her eyes closed. How did it go inside? I didn't hear a single shot. Not very well, I'm afraid, and she's not going to back down. She's waiting for you in the car now. Can I ask you a question? Of course, Sam, you know you can ask me anything. I smiled faintly. What do you see for your future at work? How ambitious are you, Megan? Megan's eyes opened wide at such an unusual question. I'm not quite sure what you're getting at, Sam, but if that's what I'm thinking, I'd like to take Amy's place first. She got up from the sun lounger. I know I can do it, and do it well, but I have no intention of sacrificing my virtue for it. Why do you ask? I lowered my head in thought. I think it's time to end this circus. Then I said with grim determination, Can you enlist Kevin Paxton to meet me in town? Let's say in 3 weeks, because I might have a proposal for both of you. Megan nodded in agreement. I led Megan back to the cottage, and she saw Vivian standing by the stove. She elbowed me in the ribs and whispered, "Now I understand why Amy left here with her tail between her legs. You old lady's man." The look on Megan's face made me smile. She's great, and I'm sure she was the final nail in Amy's coffin. Hell, Sam, Amy was never her equal. Hell, I'm not even hers. Equal. Poor Amy must be licking her wounds right now. I nodded at Megan's assessment of Vivian's beauty, and she's just as gorgeous on the inside. Vivian looked up when I introduced Megan. "Nice to meet you. Sam seems to have so many women in his life that I'm not sure there's room for me," she said hesitantly. Megan giggled. "Don't worry about any other woman you see with Sam. He's a one-woman man, that much you can be sure of, honey. And from what I can see, he's got his sights set on your cute little ass. Watch out. Sam can be a real Casanova when he is interested in a woman." I didn't know what Megan was talking about. I was not around her in a social setting for her to make such a statement. I felt my face turn red. "I think you've said enough for this evening, Megan, and it's time to leave." I was pushing her towards the front door when she looked over her shoulder and fired one last volley. "If you're smart, Vivian, don't let this handsome guy go." With one last kiss on the cheek, she said goodbye to me. "Be a good girl, and I'll see you in 3 weeks." Vivian and I sat finishing dinner under Merlot in the backyard, watching the waterfowl slowly float by. We discussed the events of that day, and I told Vivian all the dirty details of my marriage to Amy and the destruction it had caused. "You don't want to do this, Sam." I winced at what I was about to do. "No, Vivian, you're right. I don't want to do this, but it's necessary. I can't sit back and let everyone out there lose their jobs because I took the easy way out. As much as it hurts me, I have no choice." Vivian was silent for a moment, but then said, "If you want my opinion, Amy still holds a grudge against you." I looked at Vivian and almost laughed. I knew what she was holding before, but I don't think so now. Not after what I told her this afternoon. I came down on her with everything I had, but I don't think it made a difference. Vivian smiled. "Despite your stern demeanor, it's clear that you care about others, Sam, including No, and believe me, for us women, this quality in men is very valuable." I had nothing to say to this, so I started drinking my beer again. Vivian patted my hand in support. "If I'm right about you, I'm sure you'll do what's right for everyone." I nodded with a gloomy feeling, "But not everyone will think so, I'm afraid." "You didn't make her bed, Sam, it's her, and now she'll have to lie in it, and you won't do anything. You can do something about it." Vivian was silent for a minute or two, and I was lost in my thoughts when she asked out of the blue, "Speaking of beds, when will you show me yours?" To say the announcement took me by surprise would be an understatement. "What?" Vivian giggled. "Megan told me that if I want to stake my claim on you, then I shouldn't beat around the bush." "What did she say?" "If you're smart, Vivian, don't let this handsome guy go." Well, here's me, grabbing the one I think is worthy. "So you're interested in more than just platonic relationships." I know it sounded like I was a student who had just graduated from high school and was testing new waters. I didn't want to do anything wrong. As you can see, my reputation with women is not the most encouraging. It was difficult for me to look her straight in the eyes when I said this. Vivian giggled. "You're blushing, Sam." My ears lit up like fire, and an embarrassed smile appeared on my face. "You know how to make a man feel stupid." I rubbed my face and eyes with both hands, more to bring myself back under control than to actually feel tired. "The day I walked into your store and saw you completely exhausted and you accepted my help, I felt like a knight in shining armor who had come to save a lady in distress." The smile on her face was priceless. "You were my knight on the right steed that day, and you still are, Sam." Vivian leaned over and kissed my cheek tenderly. "Ever since then, I've come to rely on you. Now I understand why you took pity on me all those months ago." Vivian stopped when she saw the look of confusion on my face. "You must have had a hard time when Amy showed you that you weren't needed. Well, if it's any consolation, know that I need you, Sam. I haven't been this comfortable and relaxed since Greg died. Yes, it's a man's thing. Amy didn't understand it, and I couldn't explain it myself. Vivian patted my hand in support. You've been kind to me, Sam, and I want you to know that I appreciate it. Before Megan made her faux pas, I realized that I had more than just friendly feelings for you. So how are you looking at this? Do you want to take our relationship to the next level? Vivian's expression was a mixture of sincerity and hope. Well, madam, if you insist, I simply must show you my engravings, I finished with a sly smile. Vivian's face lit up. What the hell with engravings? I'm more interested in the tool you use to make these engravings. We both laughed when she stood up and headed for the door, saying as she went, race to the bedroom. I saw Kevin and Megan when I entered the restaurant. My look said everything about my mood. Kevin stood up and extended his hand. Long time no see, old friend. Good to see you after so many years. What have you been doing? You look 10 years younger. I smiled as I shook Kevin's hand. Glad to see you again. I feel great. How's life? Ooh, average. I can't complain because no one is listening. I smiled at his words, kissing Megan on the cheek. You look beautiful as always, dear. I don't know what you see in this robber, but I hope he treats you well. Megan giggled. A robber, you say? I'm just that type. How did you know? I smiled. Because like I told Amy, I'm an observer of people, honey, and I saw your reaction when I asked Kevin to come here today. I think you two will make a formidable team. Kevin chuckled at my assessment. Speaking of the team, what offer do you have in store for us? I laughed. Always to the point, Kevin, you never change. Okay then, business first, and then we can enjoy dinner. As the waitress served us our drinks, I laid out my proposal. As you know, the company is in trouble, and if something isn't done, everyone will end up on the street, looking for work elsewhere. As you and I learned, there aren't many choices. I took some folders out of my briefcase and handed the white folder to Kevin. This is what I think needs to be done to correct this situation. If you disagree or have something to add, speak up. While Kevin was studying the folder, I opened the second one. This is a list of people who need to be brought to our side. I'll leave it up to you how you do it. Kevin was flipping through the folder. At first glance, it looks like you've thought of everything. Apparently, you're going to act not only against JPL and Amy, but also against Dobson Inc. and Jason. I saw the look on Kevin's face and knew what he was thinking. We have no choice, Kevin. Since Dobson bought JPL, it has been a two-pronged attack. My initial ideas were only about JPL. Now we need to focus on the Dobson board of directors if we want to succeed. If you can get the board on board, then Megan will do her job at JPL. We have a chance, albeit a small one, but this is our only chance. Kevin handed the folder to Megan. You're not kidding, Sam. Small chance is an understatement, rather anorexic, but I see the possibilities. I think it would be useful to consult Jack DeKinham. He's a master at accounting, don't you think? I thought for a moment and nodded gloomily. I know he's a genius at accounting, if you think he's needed. He and I didn't get along in the end. Not sure why, but he made it clear that I wasn't his favorite employee. Megan nodded, looking through the folder. Agree with Kevin, Jack needs to know better. When it comes to creative accounting, he's a master. I'll talk to him and find out. Kevin picked up the second folder to read, studying the list of names. Wow, there are a lot of high-profile people here. I'm not sure I could even meet some of them, let alone get them on our side. I chuckled, doubting Kevin's doubts. What do you think I've been doing for the last 3 weeks? There's one name here, Slovak. I couldn't even get close to him, and if he's not with us, it's all pointless. How did you become so influential? Influential, damn it. If I were that good, Slovak would eat out of my hand. I handed Kevin another folder. This is a list of appointments with everyone else on the list except Slovak. Megan looked up from the folder she was reading. Isn't Slovak Jerry Cambridge's uncle? Maybe he can arrange a meeting with him for us. Kevin and I looked at each other and shrugged. Kevin asked, "Can you find out and organize something, honey?" Megan smiled. "I have a meeting tomorrow to organize travel plans with Jerry. I'll ask him." This information calmed me down a little, so I finished. "I took the liberty of organizing the times and dates on your behalf. The smell is already reaching the top. I outlined my concerns, but at that time I did not have a workable plan. I deployed a lot of resources. There's still a lot of work to do to finalize the details, and I think we need to get everyone together to finalize the final design." Megan shook her head. "I can't believe Jason didn't see trouble coming." "Ooh, he knows very well," I snorted. "He just doesn't care. He has a scapegoat and Amy is in for a terrible surprise when he stabs her in the back." Megan cringed in sympathy. "Amy may be a selfish bitch, but I don't think she deserves to be treated like that." I nodded, confirming her words. "I think he'll have to act before the next quarterly shareholders meeting to have a chance of staying clean. So we have to act now and do it quickly, neatly, and cleanly. We'll impress the top brass and we'll be in business." Kevin shook his head. "You seem confident that we will accept your offer." I chuckled again. "Come on, Kevin. Think about it. What do you have to lose? If Amy could push her ideas forward, then it will be a walk in the park for you. Haven't you found another job that matches your abilities? I know you have a score to settle with Amy. And I'm sure Jason isn't on your Christmas card list." I nodded towards Megan. "And this little brat seems to believe in you as much as I do. I'm sure you'll take the bull by the horns and get this operation done. Damn it, I've done the easy part. All you have to do is bring home the bacon." Kevin laughed along with Megan. "Everything is tied up with a neat little pink bow," he remarked sarcastically. Megan frowned. "What about Jason? He won't go down without a fight, and I'm sure he has the backing to sink this ship before he can fire the first shot." She pointed to the second folder. I twisted my face into an evil grin. "Leave that bastard to me. You won't even see him, let alone deal with him. All you have to do is keep Amy busy so she doesn't find out what's going on and do something stupid like professional suicide and destroying everyone else in the process." Megan's face lit up with the same evil smile. "She's our last worry. After your conversation the other day, she's got her head down so much that she doesn't know what day it is. Vivian has really hurt her, and now she's determined to prove you wrong. I can tell you, Sam, that you really got under her skin. I had to intervene in her many suggestions to the head office to make her look at least somewhat competent." Kevin, Megan, and I enjoyed our dinner while discussing plans. By the time we said goodbye, we had arranged to meet again in 2 days with other people to finalize the project. The meeting was heated, to say the least. Megan and Kevin gathered a half-dozen accomplices to help put the plan into action. Jack Deacon was one of them, and as I predicted, Jack was hostile from the start, although he listened to us. "Let me look at the financial package," he demanded, and we all waited with bated breath as he ran his finger across the page with amazing speed, adding and subtracting numbers. "This is complete nonsense, Beckman. You can't justify these numbers in any way." I looked at him, and my first reaction was to lash out at his negativity, but I restrained myself and answered, controlling my anger, "These are just rough estimates, forecasts." Deacon smiled sarcastically. "Don't quit your day job, Beckman. I've seen better weather forecasts." This was the moment to put everything on the line. I told Amy I can work around difficult people, and now is the time to prove it. "Look, Deacon, can I call you Jack? I know we haven't gotten along since Amy rose through the ranks, but I know you're good at what you do, and that's why you're here. You're the best." I saw his chest fill with pride and knew I was on the right track. Jack smiled, understanding my move. "I may be considered just an accountant, but I'm not so socially inappropriate that I can't be recognized when I'm suck up." I gritted my teeth in frustration. I know it sounded like flattery, but that doesn't make my words any less true. I pointed to the others present. "What will these people do when the storm hits at the next shareholders' meeting?" Personally, I don't care whether you join this proposal or not. I can leave and go back to my life in the village, and you will be thinking, how will you survive the queue at the job exchange? You're a genius with numbers, Jack. You can find a job at any time, but what will happen to them? We need you to do your job, be creative, and make these forecasts work. I could see the gears turning in his head. Despite the attempt to offend his conscience, he seemed interested. So this isn't some kind of scam to advance your wife's career. I smiled sadly and shook my head. So that's his problem with me. No, Jack, definitely not. First of all, she's my ex-wife, and she'll be happy to be allowed to shuffle papers in some dark, windowless office if we can pull this off. I made a mistake when I got divorced. With her, I should have destroyed her, but I didn't, and now I regret the consequences. I'm here to correct this mistake. Regardless of whether our proposal works or not, both she and Jason are history. Jack looked around the room, then back at the file, and said, "You know, Sam, I've been doing so much with so little for so long that I'm now fully qualified to make everything out of nothing." He raised his head with a wide smile on his face. "What's the deadline for this miracle?" I looked at Kevin. "I need this by 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon," he answered carefully. "Holy God," Jack burst out. His eyes popped out of their sockets. "I'm good, Kevin, but even God would have a hard time sorting out this mess by then." We all looked at each other, and I began to worry that my brilliant plan might fail. What he said next surprised me and probably everyone else in the room. "I want a sign that says God to put on my desk if I do this," said Deacon. After a moment of thought, Kevin grinned. "I will engrave it myself and make everyone bow to you if you give me these numbers by 3 o'clock tomorrow." Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. "Okay, folks, let's burn the midnight oil. Call whoever you need, and let's get started." Megan approached me and asked if she could get some of the girls from the printing department to do the assembly and delivery work. "It's your choice, Megan. Show what you can do, woman. I'm only here to help with questions if they arise, but now it's all up to you." I gestured that I was giving her control. "Oh, Jesus," she exclaimed, glancing at Kevin. "Sam's right, honey. You need to take control and show everyone that they can count on you in a crisis." Kevin and I stood back while Megan took a deep breath and got to work. An hour later, she was already organizing groups and brainstorming sessions. Jack argued with her until she exploded. "I don't care how many people you bring to meet the deadline, Jack. You know what we're dealing with. Just do it, okay?" Kevin chuckled. "I think you were right, Sam. She's a real fighter." I smiled at Kevin's obvious pride in his fiery little woman. I hit him lightly on the arm. "I never doubted it, Kevin." I pointed a finger at my forehead as a sign of knowledge and went to help. I walked into Jason's office, passing his shocked secretary. "Sorry, sir, but you can't go in there." Jason looked at me with disgust and waved his hand at her. "It's okay, Lynn." "What does this invasion mean, Beckman?" It was clear that Jason was more than upset to see me in front of his desk again. "This is no way to start a negotiation, Jason. I would think a man of your caliber and business acumen would know when to be a little more accommodating." My face was a mask of sinister charm. Jason sat back and waited for me to continue. On the other hand, I took my time and gave him the opportunity to digest what was happening, knowing that in a battle of wills, it is usually assumed that the one who speaks first loses. Finally, Jason gave in, beads of sweat running down his forehead. "Are you going to stand here all day and stare at me and tell me why you're here?" He looked nervously at his watch. "I have a shareholders meeting in an hour." "I'm here to help you get ready, dumbass," I finally told him. Where should I go? I could see that Jason was not happy with the way this conversation was going. "I don't care where you go, as long as you get out of here before the end of the day." I curled my lips in a contemptuous grin. "But I think you should choose another state, on the other side of the country." "So what if I'm not going anywhere, asshole? I'm only a couple years away from retirement, and I'm not about to give up my lucrative retirement plan for someone like you." I shook my head. "You have two choices, bastard. You can stand up, Hand in your resignation and leave with what's in your pockets and nothing more, or you can stay and watch as I destroy your pathetic life brick by brick. That includes yourself and your family life, and from what I've been able to find out, you'll be lucky if you have anything left over for a cup of coffee." Jason frowned. "I did what you wanted, Beckman. I gave Amy her chance to become vice president, and as you know, she now runs JPL. So why are you suddenly making threats? It's no secret that we got along well, but I always believed that you kept your word. What changed when you decided to bring back the past and use it against me?" I leaned forward, resting my hands on his desk so that our faces were inches apart. "You changed my mind, bastard. I held my end of the deal until you broke it. Now you're going to pay. You screwed Amy in every way. You let her go before the board with her proposal, knowing it was doomed to fail. You saw an opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. You knew she would come to me for help to save the company, and you damn well knew I wouldn't help her. So you broke our agreement, and now I'm collecting the full amount." Sweat dripped off Jason's face as he listened to me. Everything I said was true, and he must have wondered how I knew he set her up. "I didn't break our agreement, Beckman. She came to me herself. I just gave her a chance to prove herself. If anyone is to blame for her situation, it's her." "Don't tell me that nonsense, you low-life bastard," I said, sweeping some trinkets off his desk with my left hand in a fit of anger. "You had every opportunity to make her back down. Hell, even an idiot with a fifth-grade education would have realized that without your support, she had no chance of standing in front of the board members and making a fool of herself." Pointing my finger at his face, I continued, "It was your decision, and you made it wrong. Now you have to make things right. Either you resign or watch your life be destroyed." Jason's face expressed a storm of emotions, and I enjoyed this spectacle with great pleasure. I stood still and watched him struggle with his options. "I doubt you have enough dirt on me to make good on your threats," he finally said, his eyes darting around the room, looking for a way out. "Do you really think I've been sitting on my ass all these years? I have all your dirty deals you were up to your neck in before you ruined my marriage, and I've amassed even more over the years. Corporate fraud and embezzlement to mention just two." It was a bluff, but I assumed that since he was so corrupt, he had other shady dealings. "Is it your choice, Jason, prison or retirement?" I watched as his eyes darted around the room, realizing that the only door I had left open for him was his office door, and it was waiting for him to leave. "Kevin Paxton is currently speaking with your board of directors, and he has a proposal that will turn your world upside down." To finish him off, I added, "And when I leave here, I will immediately go there to transfer everything I have to your traitorous ass. No one will ever worry about you meddling with someone else's family again." That was the end for poor Jason, and he pressed the intercom button. "Lynn, come here with a notepad and pencil. I need to write a letter immediately." I walked over to his bar and poured myself a whiskey. "You don't have to stay, Beckman, you win. I'll leave before the end of the working day." I drank my drink while Jason's secretary came in and sat down to take dictation. "No problem, old Jason. I have no urgent matters right now. I'll be happy to pass on your letter." Lynette could feel the tension in the air as she waited for Jason to begin dictating. When he finished, she couldn't help but laugh and left the office as quickly as she could. I saw her reaction and knew that rumors would already be flying around the office before Jason could gather his things and leave the building. As a parting blow, I shouted after him as he left his office for the last time. "I heard that the South Pole has good weather this time of year, and I don't really want to look for you there. Oh, and Jason, have a good one. Day for you." A few minutes later, Lynette came back and threw her arms around my neck. "Thank you, Mr. Beckman. Thank you very much." I pulled back in confusion. "Wait, lady, what are you thanking me for?" Lynette calmed down with tears in her eyes. "Jason tried to blackmail me. He harassed me. It was just hints so far, but I think he was going to increase the pressure if I didn't agree. I can't express how grateful I am for what you did for me." I was furious that Jason would get away with it. I was right. Amy had expired and Jason was looking for a replacement. I decided that Jason had signed his own death sentence and that his marriage was now in jeopardy. Rest assured that your next boss will be someone you can trust. If all goes according to plan, he will expect only one thing from you: to do your job to the best of your ability. He is a man of integrity who values the loyalty of his employees. Lynette kissed my cheek again. Anyway, you're now permanently on my Christmas card list, and I'll try to convince my husband to name our next son after you. She smiled. Thanks again for your help. She handed me an envelope. I must say that I have never in my life enjoyed typing a letter as much as I did this. I walked back into the same office Jason had left 6 months ago. Good morning, Lynn. Is the chief there? Good morning, Mr. Bickman. Yes, Mr. Paxton waiting for you. And as I reached for the door, she added, Mr. Beckman, you were right. He is every kind of boss you could wish for. Thanks again. I chuckled as I opened the door. Always happy to help, Lynn, and call me Sam. Mr. Bickman, that's my dad, I giggled. Lynette laughed and waved at me. So, what's it like to be the CEO of one of the most successful companies on the stock market over the last quarter? I asked, plopping down in one of the comfortable office chairs. Sam, you old bastard, where have you been? How are you? I can't tell you how grateful I am to you for what you've done for all of us, especially Megan and me. She pinches herself every morning to make sure it's not a dream. I raised an eyebrow in interest. Ooh, oh, really? And how do you know that? Are you saying you wake up next to her? Any plans for a mini-merge? I joked. Kevin shrugged. We're still at the negotiation stage, but the deal is probably soon. I'm sure Megan would have wanted you to be at the signing ceremony. And from what I heard, you also have a special girlfriend. I burst out laughing. Exactly, and that's exactly what I was doing. You had a company that needed to be saved, and I had my own business that needed to be developed. Vivian is really from a good breed, a real racer, and if I have any say at all, then I will tie my cart to hers. Kevin sat back after our fun had died down a bit, and with a more serious expression asked, Have you heard about Amy? I felt my face become serious. Yeah, Megan called me the day she was taken to the hospital. I think it all got too much for her, and she just broke down. Megan asked if I was going to go see her that day to see how she was coping, and perhaps rebuilding a few bridges. I didn't see any point in this, at least until she gets professional help. My appearance would only worsen her condition. Kevin nodded and shrugged. Yeah, maybe you're right. I think Megan feels a little sorry for her, but these are women. She's going to offer her an entry-level job at JPL, maybe a secretarial position. I hope that doesn't offend you. I shook my head, frowning. Of course not. I don't hate her, and frankly, I don't even dislike her. She's just someone I once knew, and I hope she gets her life in order. Kevin leaned back in his chair. So, would you like to come back? I can offer you a good job with a great financial package. I grinned. No way, buddy. Besides, you don't need me. As far as I know, God himself is working for you now. Kevin laughed. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about Jack. He got his plaque and the respect of everyone on the staff. You were right. He really is a math genius. I'll admit, the situation was in the balance, and I literally walked into a meeting with the board members an hour before the meeting of shareholders when he gave me the financial report of our proposal. Kevin looked down and started laughing. What's so funny? I just remembered what Jack looked like when a few girls came up to him and made it clear that they were interested in him. We'll see how much of a god he really is when he tries to figure out the female Formula X. If he can handle this, then I believe that he is God. I laughed too. I wish I could have been there. Besides, I wish I could have been at the council meeting, but I had less pleasant things to do. Around the time you were courting the council members, poor Jason was sweating at the very same table you're sitting at now. Kevin smiled widely. That said, if you ever need a job, let me know. I shook my head again. I've had enough already. Vivian and I opened our little family resort. I was just here to offer you corporate discounts for the Thanksgiving long weekend. I was thinking you could have some friendly competition and promote team bonding." Kevin nodded in approval. "I think we can make it work. It might really build camaraderie with a couple of fishing contests." Vivian and I were invited to Kevin and Megan's wedding, and now they have two wonderful boys. They continue to be a formidable team in the business. We receive Christmas cards from Lynn and her family. She actually convinced her husband to name their next child after me. Her name is Samantha, Sam for short. Jason hasn't been heard from since his wife threw all his clothes on the lawn and turned on the sprinklers. They say he is now keeping penguins warm in Antarctica, but these are just rumors. And Amy, after she got the help she needed to deal with what Jason had done, she accepted Megan's offer of an entry-level job as a secretary errand girl. She sold her ridiculously luxurious mansion and bought a modest apartment within walking distance of her work. She will never again be part of the elite business community, but she has her own place, fully paid for, and will have to work until retirement on a modest pension. I spoke to her at a company Thanksgiving party at the lake. She was a little reluctant to come, but Megan convinced her that she needed to close the circle a little. We chatted for a bit, and she almost apologized for her arrogance and admitted that she was out of place. I also apologized for ruining her safety, but I didn't see any other option without jeopardizing everyone else's jobs. She said that after therapy, she realized how stupid her thoughts were. It was nice to hear her laugh when I told her about how Jason left. I think she had a relaxing weekend, much of it sunbathing with female colleagues. I don't know how things are in her personal life. Megan says that she sometimes goes out with girls, but rarely stays for long. Honestly, I don't even have time to think about it, let alone care. This is her life, which she herself made, and she has to live with it. Vivian and I married 6 months later, and we moved into my cottage with Bessie. I watched as she took a photograph of her late husband out of her suitcase. She stood looking at it for a moment, then kissed it and carefully placed it in one of the drawers of her dressing table. This gesture touched me, and I walked up to her, and while she looked with uncertainty, I took out a frame and placed it on the dressing table. I think Greg deserves to see his wife happy, cared for, and loved, right? Vivian smiled, with tears in her eyes, hugging me. "You're a good man, Samuel. I think Greg and you would be best friends. My guardian angel works hard. I've been very lucky to have found not one, but two men in my life who I can rightfully call my soulmates." I felt great, better than I had felt in years. "When Bessie grows up, you'll have to tell her all the good things about her father. I think they both deserve it." Our small fishing resort is developing rapidly. Jillian now lives in an apartment adjacent to the store, although that doesn't mean she's always on time for work, but at least we know where to find her during peak hours. We have consolidated our sites and added more cabins with their own piers for weekend fishing enthusiasts. I spend most of my time fiddling around in his workshop, repairing boats and doing general grounds maintenance. Vivian is still running the store, and Bessie is getting more and more in the way. She is already 5, and for her I am dad. After all, I am the only father she knows. We surprised her last summer with her own little brother that she takes care of. Brady keeps her busy for a while, and I have to admit I care about both of them. Oh, and my doctor. He's happy too, so remind me to send Amy a nice thank you card for that. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.